When I was just a little boy, my older sister, used to like to scare me by making me watch all old horror movies back in the 80s. And this was during the height of the slasher genre. I remember getting scared to death of watching movies like the Halloween series or the Friday the 13th movies. But one that really got to me was Nightmare on Elm Street. In that one, it was more frightening for me because, unlike guys like Michael Myers and Jason, who you could readily run from, or who you could fight against to an extent, the Nightmare on Elm Street series had Freddy Krueger, who was a different type of boogeyman, who did strike you in the physical world, but struck you when you were most vulnerable in your dreams. He can turn your greatest dreams into your worst nightmares, and there was very little, if anything, you could do against him. And there was really no way to kill him, or no permanent way to kill him, because Freddy was essentially a spirit. He was dead. I hated those movies because my sister used to scare and freak me out, especially with that creepy ass nursery rhyme that went with it. But as the years progressed, I got to appreciate the films for the cinematic horror that they were, as well as the man behind them, the man that I'm talking about in this video, one Mr. Wes Craven, who has been called the master of horror, the second coming of Alfred Hitchcock, a man who has taken the horror genre and turned it into high art. Today we lost this visionary of horrordom at the age of 76 when he was scheduled to do the next. He was scheduled to have a hand in the next Nightmare on Elm Street series, as well as a hand in the next Scream movie, Scream 5, which I think was supposed to come out this year. I'm sorry, my mind's a little bit blank right now, but the man really doesn't get a lot more credit than he actually deserves. He is a fantastic author. I mean, he's a fantastic director and producer. I mean, some of the stuff he's done outside of Nightmare on Elm Street, he directed and produced the entire Scream franchise, which turned the entire genre of the horror movie on its head by pointing out its cliches but stepping around them. He also did several other movies, including the original. He directed the original, The Last House on the Left, which was which was an old movie that my mother actually made me watch when I was just a young boy, about 8 or 9. And it's still one of those movies that I can't really watch anymore because it's just so visceral and brutal. He also did The Hills Have Eyes, the original, as well as had a hand in the remake. He did several movies, including Body Bags and The People Under the Stairs, which is a personal favorite of mine. And another personal favorite that I didn't know he had a hand in was Vampire in Brooklyn, starring Eddie Murphy. That movie, I always loved that movie because it was funny and it was dark at the same time. It was a different role for Eddie Murphy and I enjoyed it. Wes Craven's New Nightmare was probably the most frightening of all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies because it took a whole new route with the idea of Freddy Krueger not just being so popular that he crossed over into our reality. And I like the way that when he talks about these movies, or when he talks about horror movies in general, he does it in such an artistic way that you just can't that you see that he has a mastery over this style, and it's very inspiring. And horror movies today just don't have the impact that his movies had. And it just goes to that more people are going for these found footage movies in the vein of the Blair Witch Project. But that's okay and well and good, but they don't have much staying power. But the Nightmare on Elm Street movies were visionary in a way that he took the slasher genre and just said, hey, what if the monster that he was dealing with wasn't some unfeeling zombie psychopath? What if he was a dangerous, cunning spirit that you couldn't really touch or interact with in any semblance of fashion? So it's just amazing. And he also has done a lot of cameos, and he can be surprisingly funny and entertaining when he needs to be. Strange for a horror movie director, but I'll pull up his filmography right now. for some of you guys. Now, all these are the movies that I'm going to name are the movies that he has either directed, produced as executive director, written, did the cinematography for, was an editor for, or did did a cameo or was an actor in it. This includes Together, the original Last House on the Left, the original Hills Have Eyes, Stranger in Our House, The Evolution of Snuff, Here Comes the Tigers, Deadly Blessing, Kent State, The First Swamp Thing, Invitation to Hell, Nightmare on Elm Street 1, Chiller, The Hills Have Eyes 2, The Twilight Zone, Deadly Friends, Case Busters, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Serpent and the Rainbow, The People Next Door, Shocker, Night Visions, The People Under the Stairs, Nightmare Cafe, Laurel Canyon, Body Bags, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, The Hills Have Eyes 3, The Fear, Scream 1 and 2, Wishmaster, Holly Weird, Don't Look Down, Carnival of Souls, Music of the Night, Scream 3, Dracula 2000, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, They Shoot Divas, Don't They, Dracula 2, Ascension, Tales from the Crapper, The Cutting Edge, The Magic of Movie Editing, Dracula 3, Legacy, Cursed, Inside Deep Throat, Feast, Red Eye, the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, The Breed, Paris Je t'aime, The Hills Have Eyes 2, The Tripper, Diary of the Dead, the remake to The Last House on the Left, My Soul to Take, Scream 4, Castle, and the aforementioned Scream 5. So, you probably recognized a good ton of movies on here, and so did I. There was a few, when I looked up the discography, I realized that he worked on a lot more movies than I thought, and he really deserves more credit than we often give him. So, with this video, we say good night, sweet prince, to Wes Craven, the master of horror. And hopefully, he can inspire yet another new generation, and hopefully, people will look at his movies now, and he will be more appreciated the work he's done in not only in the genre of horror movies, but in film in general. So with that, as a salute to him, I bid him this. One, two, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. 7, 8, better stay up late. 9, 10, never sleep.